What's up, you guys? Slim here at SlimXTeamSymmetry, here with the next installment of Slim Psychology. This one, of course, is going to be on spells, as I promised, via my Facebook fan page. Thank you to everyone who, checked that out. I got the 10 plus likes I needed in about something like 20 minutes, which was amazing. And also, this was requested after yesterday's video on picking your line of defense. This one, I guess I'm going to title choosing your artillery, because to me, in this game, your traps, of course, are your line of defense, and your spells would be your artillery, kind of what you go into battle with, aside from, just your monsters. They need support, and that comes in the form of spell, magic, whatever you want to call it, cards. Now, basically the way I'm going to handle this video is I'm just going to talk about some of the, I think, staple spells that you see in pretty much every deck, the reasons why, and just go about a couple different ideas as to why certain cards are run in certain decks and why the opposite is true, that some cards are not run in certain decks. So you can see I've highlighted a lot of cards here. I've got our staple ones. I've got some stuff that you see in just certain decks, and we'll just get into it piece by piece. So we're going to start with the generic. Can be 5, 6, whatever you want to call it. These are the spells that almost every deck starts out with. When building a deck, you look for power cards. You look for cards that are going to give you the most bang for your buck and do things that completely turn the game in your favor. I don't need to really even explain this. You guys already know Monster Reborn and Dark Hole have been around, and Heavy Storm have been around since the beginning of time, basically, in this game. They are, without a doubt, known as the Trinity right now, the new Trinity of the most powerful spell cards in the game, and probably the best spell cards in the game. 2 for mass removal, and 1 that just brings back something from either grave. You cannot ask for better. These cards are pretty much in every deck, even in dragons that don't run back row, they run these. Every deck needs to run these. If you're not running these cards, I really don't understand why. Aside from Malefic and Gravekeeper's not running, possibly Reborn or Heavy due to their other effects, but every other deck is going to run these because these are the best cards, spell cards in the game, and psychologically they just mess with your opponent, especially a top deck heavy, a Heavy Storm, when you feel that there's only one in the deck and you're clear to set back row. Your opponent rips it off the top, ruins all your plans, and goes for game from there because you've lost all your line of defense. This card is one of the most powerful cards in the game. I think it probably needs to be one of the most feared cards in the game. Along with these two, you can win a game single-handedly with a top deck Monster Reborn and a Dark Hole. Clearing the board, bringing your opponent's life points into view is really key to winning the game. So these cards will always remain in most decks, and I don't see why they wouldn't otherwise. The next one's Book of Moon. Now, Book of Moon is one of my favorite spell cards because this card is able to do so many different things. It's defensive, it's able to save monsters, it's able to flip effect monsters, it's able to do a lot of great things. And Book, I feel, is a staple in pretty much every deck again. I don't know if it's ran in dragons. Some dragon players run it, some do not. They don't feel they need it due to the brutality of the dragons themselves. But I think this card is needed pretty much in every deck, especially in decks like Dino Rabbit, Insector, all these other decks. This card is needed because it does so much, and it definitely is a great choice and should be a staple pretty much, like I said, in every deck of this format. Pot of Avarice. Now, Pot of Avarice only belongs in certain decks, like Dino Rabbit, if they're running standard Dino Rabbit instead of Macro Rabbit. This card's also good in decks like TG and Wind Up. It makes Wind Up's loop. I believe that this is the card that makes it so you're able to knock out all the cards in your opponent's hand on the first turn, or whatever it is. This card isn't seen in dragons. This card is not, I believe, seen in Insectors. I would not understand why you would want a Pot of Avarice back. I mean, I could see you Pot of Avaricing back like your dragonflies, your centipedes and stuff. But I feel that once Hornets hits the grave, you should have enough control to win the game before you would even need this card. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you do need this in Inzectors. I have not run the deck myself, so I'm not 100% sure. I can see where this card could come in handy, especially with Ladybug and other things like that. So it depends, a player preference. But this card is just amazing. This is the card that made Plants broken beyond belief. Why it's at 1. People say it should be banned because it's like a win factor pretty much, especially in Dino Rabbit. When you use this, bring back your vanillas and, you know, rip a Rescue Rabbit off the top, already have one in your hand, you're most likely going to get it off and go to Laggy and Dolka. So this is just a really good card and a staple, like I said, in most of the main meta decks right now, aside from Dragons, Inzectors, whatever deck it is that doesn't run this card. This card can single-handedly win games. And the last of the staples that has kind of fallen off in play is Mind Control. There was a time where Mind Control was in every single deck. Fraser Smith said he feels that this card should be in pretty much every single deck. Dino Rabbit used to main it. It used to be one of the main spell cards in the deck. The thing is with the priority ruling, Dino Rabbit play, everyone thought was going to go down, and you're not guaranteed to always play the mirror match. For Dino Rabbit, you really don't want to Mind Control anything aside from another Dino to make your Laggy or Dolka, or if you're going to use Mind Control aggressively to take a monster and then poke with your monster for game. That's where I think Mind Control is really broken, is it can single-handedly win a game. I've had games against heroes where they have the Shining on the board. I have absolutely nothing in my deck that can get around that when I'm running a Dino Rabbit, and I have Laggia. I make a Laggia. They're at like 23. I Mind Control, take it, and attack for game. It's a really sacky move, but it can win you games, and this card I think is still a really good card and should definitely, if it's not in the main deck, it should be in the side deck if you can fit it, and if your deck can call for it. It's good in Inzectors because you're going to play against decks that run Tour Guide, especially with the reprint. You're going to play a lot of level 3 against a lot of other level 3s. Why not Mind Control them? Why not, you know, take their Sangan? Taking Sangan is so great with this card. Take their Sangan, exceed with it. It's really good. So I think it's still just needed in most decks. Now that covers your basic, your main spells, your power spells that are that need to be in pretty much every deck because they give you, like I said, more bang for your buck, and they do so much so much more in the long run of your game than like most other spells. Now, when it comes to other spells, the cards that are becoming staple now are the 3 MSTs. Since MST came to 3, this has become pretty much a staple in most decks because you need to get your plays off. For Dino Rabbit especially, for decks like Inzectors, decks like, what else is there? Wind-ups. You need to get your plays off. Back row is your problem. These are what take care of that. You MST the back row, you try to clear the field, and you just really get in there and, you know, try and win the game from there. Mystical Space Typhoon is not seen in the main deck of Dragons. They don't need it. They run 3 Lila. Lila is their version of MST, but this card is seen in the side deck. Same goes for Dark World. They use Grapha like an MST for its popping effect, and then, you know, of course, resummon it once the back row is clear. And that's why they do not main deck the card, but they do side deck the card because people are known to side in Royal Decree, Messenger of Peace, all the cards that can shut down decks like Dragons, deck like Rabbit. That's what these cards are for, and they've become pretty much a staple in the game in general. Most decks, like I said, will main them. If they're not, they will definitely side them, and it's very rare you'll see a deck that does not have Mystical Space Typhoon at all in it, because it's just needed for the most part of the game. Cards like Future Fusion, this card's too broken, just in Dragons. I don't even need to say it. It's like, you open with this, you win. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I don't see how you're losing if this card resolves, honestly. Like, this card's broken. Plus, you get out the 5,000 beater. You know, like, you can MST this, but your graveyard setup, if they don't MST this, you get a 5,000 beater plus your graveyard setup. That's amazing. So, yeah. Self-explanatory. Now, we're going to go into spell cards that are used in certain decks and for certain reasons. Pot of Duality is the perfect example of this. This is used in decks like Tech Genis, Heroes. What other decks are there? Well, like I said, Heroes, Tech Genis, other decks that rely on drawing to pieces to get what's needed. This card's really good. This card, when it first came out, of course, everyone knows it was the most sought-after card in the game, especially when Blackwings were in their entirety. This card is still really good. It's really good in Heroes. It adds to the consistency factor. It's really good in TGs, same thing. Beast Beatdown, anything like that that you want to draw to your pieces, that's what the dualities do. They're not seen in every deck. Like, you do not see them in Dino Rabbit, you do not see them in Dragons, and you don't see them in What other decks are there? Like I don't think I've seen them in wind up. You can see them in they're good in Inzektor. They're good because you're not special summoning most of the time. You're usually going to Centipede or whatever just to pop something and get advantage. So they usually run 1 to 2. It's still a really good card and it can still be seen in the deck. So the dualities will be a staple in pretty much a lot of decks, and as you know, new decks come out, duality will be even more effective for those different archetypes. Cards that just like add to other stuff. Allure for a lot of dark based decks. Dragons Run it, they run plenty of darks. Gravekeepers, any deck that can really just, you know, do a lot of damage with dark monsters, you know, Dark World, stuff like that. Staple just to add more consistency to the deck. When it comes to monster removal, there's always Smashing Ground is a good choice, either in the main deck or side deck, because monster removal is key to winning in certain situations where you can't get past like Spirit Reaper, Marshmallow, all that stuff. Big monsters, Smashing Ground does work. Also Soul Taker, which I don't have Soul Taker here on me yet. I know a lot of people are waiting for that Tech for Thought video on it. It is coming, you guys. I'm just waiting to get my Soul Takers from my friends so that I can have them here when I do the video. But Smashing is just one of those other cards that people put in the deck. Good against Dino Rabbit, good against pretty much every deck in the format right now, and can be a key to winning the game because you're able to clear the field, swing for games. So really good card. Really good choice of artillery when you need to, you know, just get in there and go for game. So pretty self-explanatory. Other cards that see play, like in side decks, are Forbidden Chalice. This is like an effect veiler for other monsters. Also, you can add attack to your monsters that are already big. Really good with Barbaros, makes it 3400 in the damage step, so it runs over pretty much everything. This card's really good. It's kind of like fell off a little bit in play in some side decks, but I think it's still a really good card, especially in Dino Rabbit. It's really good against, you know, Snowman Eater, and it's good against Gelin Duo and all those cards that you need to really manipulate them in order to get past them. So I think it's still a really good card. Really good artillery choice, one when you're running a deck that can really utilize it. So still a really good card in my opinion. And then of course, I think the card of the format, literally the card of the format, has been Forbidden Lance. This card is seen in pretty much every deck now, Dragons included, Inzektor's included. Dino Rabbit run 3, especially with Jurek Guaiba. This card is too good though because it's like another MST, because you're able to bait out your opponent's back row, chain this, you still get your effects off, and your opponent just wasted a card, so they're already -1. So this card's just really good and a staple in pretty much every deck. The number you run is pretty much dependent on the player. Most decks will run 3, like Dino Rabbit will run 3, Inzektor's will probably run 1 to 2, Dragons do 2, sometimes side the 3rd or so I've heard, so these are definitely the card of the format. It has really made a big difference in a lot of people's decks, and it's just able to get past everything, so definitely a staple, slowly becoming, I think, one of the most main deck cards in the format right now. And then on to just like the last couple of cards. Depending on what deck you're running, you need to run support spells, support artillery, and that comes in your forms. If you're running heroes, you have E-Call to search out your heroes. They run Gem Sparks for their alias, to, you know, destroy something, draw, Miracle Fusion because it's broken, and stuff like that is all support artillery depending on the deck you run. Night Beams, which I've talked about in other decks, these are good in Gravekeeper and some hero decks that want to have extra back row removal. Really good card, they can't chain the card you activate to it. So that's another form of support artillery for certain decks. And I guess the last things can be fields. I only have Necrovellies on me right now, but you guys know Gates of the Dark World, Dragoonities when they run Dragon's Ravine, and, you know, just stuff like that. These cards really add to the archetype that is the deck and the support that is the deck. And then you'll have cards like Royal Tribute or things that work with the field to really give you the advantage that you need. Now, I guess like the last part of this video will be, now how do you go about choosing your spells? Like I said, it's very simple. You start with your base spells, what I believe are your 4 to 5 base spells. I think it's mostly 4 because Pot of Avarice and Mind Control are dependent on the deck. But say you start with these, you then decide, you know, what is my deck trying to do? If I'm running Dragons, I'm going to run Future Fusion. If I'm running Rabbit or Inzektor's or something that needs to get its plays off and back row can be a problem, I have to have my MSTs in there if they're not already in my side deck. If I'm running Dark World, I only need these cards. Book of Moon might not even be needed. If I'm, like I said before, if you're running Dino Rabbit or decks that need to get their plays off, Forbidden Lance becomes a much needed staple in the deck. If you're trying to become really aggro, Smashing Grounds and Soul Takers add to that. They add to the monster removal and the ability of getting your plays off, and that's what is the key to winning. And yeah, that's pretty much it, you guys. I just wanted to make this video for you guys and talk about what I feel is the state of like the meta calls when it comes to spell lineup. You know, it's always player preference. That's something people always need to remember. It's always player preference, and it depends on how you play the deck. Some people play decks differently, so it depends if all the spells that I've named are even needed. Now, forgive me if I forgot any of the key spells, but this is what I had on me, so I hope it was informative enough. Hopefully you learned something. I think I learned something in the process usually. But I hope you guys like this video. You know, thank you guys for the support. I'll be making the next one soon on side decking for the current meta, and I know a lot of people want me to do that, so that'll be up in the next couple days. Like, you know, just comment, rate, subscribe, you know, thumbs up the video if you like it, and comment below with what else you want to see next. That's all I got to say, you guys, so thank you for watching.